Oh, hello. Oh, there you are, Lucinda. Perfect. I can hear you. And Olivia, that's okay. If your microphone's giving you grief, you can use the chat feature. Gavin will be watching the chat as well. All right. So let's get started on kind of what is the purpose of these 3 workshops. I don't know if you watched the stock market, but a couple of weeks ago. Oh, you can't hear us, Lucinda? Gavin, will you chat with her and try to see if you can help her find her speakers? There we go. So if you've not seen the stock market, it has been down, significantly down since the beginning of April. We've kind of had some bumps up and down. But why is this important for nonprofits? This is the first piece of overall, the landscape is changing. And that's because a lot of endowments are impacted. So not only do we have those that have their revenue sources coming from endowments, and those endowments are down, so therefore they're going to be able to pull less money for their operating. But it also impacts donors too. So donors that use dividends to give to nonprofits, overall retirees that rely on their retirement income, those that have endowments that they personally set aside to be able to gift. So one piece of the market is we have overall the stock market down that could impact. The other piece of it is the rising costs. So today we have the widest gap in affordability for homes, from homes to income, the largest gap that we've had since 2009. And it's almost, I want to say, not quite twice the gap. So affordability for buying a new home has gotten extremely expensive, but everything else too, which also impacts whether I can give as a donor. So lots of things are happening in the world, and we want to make sure that we're thinking about what does this do for a nonprofit and how do I diversify my revenue streams. That's what really drove my interest of hosting these 3 workshops, is to be able to help nonprofits think about what does this look like, the shifting landscape, how's it impacting me, and should I be doing a strategic plan, and to help those that are not able to afford to hire a consultant. So I'm going to share everything that I do for clients during these 3 sessions. We're going to drop a workbook to you. So you'll have a workbook in the chat. You can download that and follow along as you go and print it off later. But I'm going to give you everything we do from the process to the questions that we ask to how we help with activation. My first question, though, to all of you, and you can answer it verbally or you can put it in chat. Where are you? This will just help as we go throughout the series. Gavin's dropping in the chat the workbook that we'll use. But where are you in the strategic planning journey? Do you have a plan? Are you thinking about doing a plan? Where are you in the moment?
I would say we have an awesome strategic plan that Laura Lee helped us develop. But because I work with 9 different counties and their coalitions are at different levels of organization and progress, I'd like to be able to take this and look at it from a different angle. How can we help them develop strategic plans?
Oh, perfect. Then, Jerry, the workbook will build on itself. You will have a complete tool set, the questions to ask. And this will help you think about your plan. Is it missing something? Is there a gap? It'll help you look at your plan differently, help you activate. Dana, Olivia, or Lucinda?
Oh, sorry.
You're fine.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, Olivia.
We have been working since Donka left to develop a new strategic plan. So we feel like we're kind of close to being done with what we think it will look like, but we're really looking to kind of get into the nitty-gritty detail and like fine tune it to figure out what our job duties and responsibilities are going to look and how it's going to shape our performance.
Great. So you're at the beginning stages.
Yep.
So two things. One, today will help you reflect back and say, did we do these things? Have we thought about them? Workshop 2 will help say, okay, do we have all of this information in our plan? And 3 will help you, how do I take this, tell the story to the donors, to the community, to the nonprofits that we serve, to each other, to our board members. So you're at a perfect spot too, to say, okay, we've kind of got this down the road. Did we miss anything? And then how do we activate it? Awesome. All right, Dana.
Yeah, so I'm with SICM, which is a statewide organization, and they have a strategic plan for now, but their funding is going to look very different at the end of these grants from NRCS and ATB, which is America the Beautiful. So that all ends in 2027. So right now we're working on trying to find the direction we're headed when this project ends, the Indiana Invasive Initiative project. So that's why I'm here, is just kind of trying to see how to navigate that change and get some ideas before we hit the ground running with that. I also work with a couple of other organizations, so strategic planning is not something that either one of those organizations have done before. I'm the president of Soil and Water in our county and the Parks Department in our county. So I'm trying to get them started in that direction too. So.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So both of these things, the both situations, specifically this call today, we'll talk about the beginning of where do we go from here when our landscape is changing. It'll get you to think about 3 different boxes, and that'll also be part of the very beginning of workshop 2, is kind of, wow, how do we know what's happening, the landscape underneath our feet, and how do we respond to it? So I think it'll cue you up very, very well for those conversations.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lucinda? Not sure if she's there. Okay. All right. Lucinda, jump in if you come back. I'm not sure. Okay. All right. So I want to give you kind of a what to expect on these calls and how we'll be interacting. So today, again, first call, we're going to go through some terms. I'm going to give you 3 different things to think about. And then I'm going to share a lot of the key decisions that need to be made. And these are meant to be thought-provoking. So that's how we'll end the session. We're going to do all of that mural. You don't have to worry about this, what we have up on the screen. You're not going to log in or have to do anything. Gavin will be capturing, but I'll be moving the screen throughout. We'll be following it. But you have your workbook. You'll just follow along in the workbook, write up on a PDF, just follow it along, or write your notes and you'll be able to look at it later. However, it's a really small group, which is what I intended or wanted it to be, so that we can ask questions. So I ask you to either ping Gavin in chat or stop me. Most of you know me really well. So just I'm not figuring this out, or, hey, I disagree with that, whatever, stop me, because I want you to walk away with information that you came for. You came to seek information. I want to make sure that you walk away with it. So the first question that we think about in strategic planning, before this is one of the very first questions that I ask clients before we even get into have they done some of the deeper work. It's, what do you want it to? Oh, what's that? Hold on, let me mute. Here we go. Okay. So what do you want to do? What do you want your strategic plan to actually do? So when you think about, you've got this, what do you, at the end of the day, you're all finished, you're all done, whether you do it by yourself, you do it with a team, you do it with the board, you do it with a consultant, whatever. What do you want it to actually do? So share that with me. What do you want it to actually do? And then we'll kind of work through what it can do.
Can I start?
Yeah, whomever.
I would like it to, I would like for my team and people coming onto the board or whatever to be able to look at this strategic plan and know exactly where we're headed, without making it easy for them to understand where we are at and where we're headed.
So if I was to go deeper on that, like, help me imagine what that would look like for you, Dana. So tell me, are there words that I would see? Is it a visual? Is it a big document, a little document? Like, tell me what you think that would look like.
I would hope to make it a smaller document. What I'm dealing with now is maybe a bigger document that's kind of confusing. For me, walking in as a new executive director to this organization, it's been like I can't look at their strategic plan and visualize what they were thinking and where they were at when they made it.
Yeah.
And so I want one that's easier to understand for somebody new coming into that, whether it would be a new executive director or a board member or a team member, that they can come in and look at that document and understand what the heck it means.
It's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
to pick up a document that you did not put your fingerprints on, that's been passed on to you. It is hard to, in their moments, in their conversation, however they ended up where they are, it likely totally made sense, right? But when we
Right.
pick up something, it's really hard. So you do want to think about, and I'll give you a pro tip. This is something to write down. We call this fresh set of eyes. So when you're in the thick of it and you're writing it, and you're working, a small group, or you're putting it into whatever your chat GTP, if it's going to help you write it, whatever, you get it done and in final state, you put a pin in it and you walk away. We're going to work this document a little bit, but give some space, a month and a half, come back, fresh set of eyes. Let that fresh set of eyes be the last time that you look at it before you call it done. And that space that you give allows your brain to reset, and it looks a lot like new information. So it won't fill in the gaps. It won't make us as many assumptions, because when you're working in it and then you're writing it, and like for us, when our team's writing it or Jessica's writing it, the clients are often right in it, and they just came out of the session, we're looking at meeting notes, and we think everything is all connected, and because you're so close to it. But when we allow a client to have more space between the time that they do it, and then we give them space to just have a reflection, fresh set of eyes, those changes to bring clarity makes it much, much easier. Does that make sense? So pro tip.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
To write that down. All right. Who else wants to share what they want the strategic plan to actually do for them?
I'll go next.
Yeah.
I would really like ours to kind of shape what the community thinks of us. So we're kind of struggling with, people don't really know what we do or why we do it, or like how we are supporting the community. And I think a part of it's a lack of like us putting ourselves out there and branding. But I also think it's because we don't have a clear concept of how we should be sharing our strategy in the community.
So for that one, I want to give you a couple things to think about as we go through our process. So the first one is, do we need to have a strategic plan and then what we call a one-pager? And a one-pager is just a summary document that helps tell a better story. Oh, good, perfect, Lucinda. To tell a story, right? So if we want to be able to share a story more broadly, should we have some kind of one-pager with an icon, an image, a graphic? And I'll show you some of those examples when we get to session 2. The second thing is, when we go to session 2 next week, I'd like you to think about them from a stakeholder engagement. Should they be on a strategic planning committee, a community member, so they bring the voice of the community? Should they be part of the review process to just test and check, hey, does this resonate with you? So think about, how do we engage with them? And then the third part of that, which will be workshop 3, How do we activate within the community? So how will we bring them either A, along in the process, or B, once we've launched, how do we engage them? And we'll have some tips and ways to do that. So 3 things that you're thinking about with that audience. How do I tell it to them succinctly? How do I engage them in the process? How do I activate it in for them to, again, what story am I telling them? And do they get that?
Awesome.
All right. Anyone else want to share what they want their strategic plan to actually do, or you can drop it in chat before we move on to the first thing.
Just, Laura Lee, the one thing that we hear is that, people don't know what you do. Now, we've been here for 140 years. Cannot imagine that people don't know what we do, because we continue to do the same thing. However, it is, we stay with the times. You know, we meet people where they are now, not where they used to be, but where they are now and moving forward. I'd like how to tell the story better. I guess
How to tell this, how to bring clarity.
Tell our story, the clarity of our story.
Okay. So when we think about how to tell our story better, in the next session, we're going to get into a vision, mission versus a North Star. And so a lot of organizations have a vision and mission. Where there's a lot of confusion is a North Star. And the North Star is beyond that. And it is meant to help you frame up the story that you want to tell, because it's rooted in the impact on the human condition. Years from now, whatever I do, what is the impact in the human condition? So, and I'll have some examples of that. So for you, Lucinda, write down, keep it with you. How do I continue to clarify our story? So that could be in a 1-page document, like I talked to Olivia about. That also could be clarity in a North Star. Have we actually re-looked at our mission and vision, but have we drawn the picture of our final, like what is actually guiding us for this work? And it should be, for nonprofits specifically, improving the human condition in some way. And have you clearly articulated that? So keep that in mind as you go through this work. And again, we'll have lots of discussions as we go. All right. So in your workbook, you have, we're going to start with some definitions and why these things are important but often missed. So we're going to address all of the pain points nonprofits experience. And a lot of times the pain is limited staff. So we'll talk about that strategic planning group. How do we share that? Time, that's going to be one of the toughest questions that you can ask, is time and resources. Timing, are we really ready to dedicate this? Budget, which is another big thing we're going to, why I'm sharing this with you. I'm going to give you everything I have, all and as much information as I can over these last 3 sessions, so that if you are budget conscious, you can't hire anyone at all. Or if you do decide to hire someone, I'm going to share with you what you can do on your own and why you want to really think about some of the things that a consultant can do for you, and to use them in the best way possible to help you. An example of that is we recently bid on a contract of a client, and their primary challenge is the board does not work well together. The board is in conflict. They hired an industry expert that knows their industry really well. I own that I did not clearly connect that. You explained over and over again that the board is in conflict and the board needs to unite to develop this plan. And that's where we're experts. I'm not expert in their industry, what they actually do, because we want to be experts in how do you get a group to work better together and have hard conversations. I'm sharing this with you because the consultant they hired, my belief is, and I am biased, but my belief is The consultant has great industry information, and that should not be overshadowed. It's wonderful that they have industry information. But based on my research and what I know about them, they don't have the skill set to have hard conversations. So the client's primary challenge, the consultant can't solve. So when we think about this work, a lot of times you want to be careful that, are we solving the right problem? Are they going to be able to help us? If we only have a little bit of budget, do we really want to hire a consultant to do a survey when we can do a survey ourselves? When we really need them to facilitate, we have a great writer on staff. Do we really want to pay them to write it when we have a good writer? But we can't have these hard conversations. So that's one of the bigger challenges that nonprofits, and I want you to think about that as we go through it. Universally, big company, small company, mid-sized company, activation is a problem. They get the plan, they don't actually activate it. They don't do anything with it. The other one is complexity versus clarity. So they often look for clarity, but then the plan ends up being overly complex. So we want to talk about that as we go through the plan. Some people want it to be very complex. Some people don't. You're looking for alignment on that. But the very first thing that you want to start with is three questions. Do we want to grow? What is our strategy? And what's our strategic plan, our roadmap? So I want to start with growth, because a lot of times nonprofits don't have this conversation. They don't think about what growth actually means. So I want to give you some examples of when you think about what growth could mean for you as an organization, and you want to frame it in these terms. Should we grow our footprint? So if I serve the south side of town today, do we want to serve the north side? If I serve this county, do I want to serve another county? Do I want to grow my footprint? That's where we're physically located. So some people go yes, some people no. We want you to think about the question so that you're intentional on the growth, because ultimately that has to be answered with clarity in the strategic plan. Another way to grow, if it's not by footprint, it could be by services. So an example of that is this particular organization, Shower Up, used to only offer personal hygiene, and they've now offered laundry services. The service of Shower Up, or offering personal hygiene and then offering laundry services, are congruent. Those two things go together from a growth standpoint. So we're going to offer this additional service. Why does it matter? What do you think matters about that when you choose a congruent a service that's aligned with another service you have? Why is that? What do you think is important about that from your perspective or your experience? Anyone? Why does it matter if we choose something in alignment, another service that's in alignment? Thoughts? Huntsville could have expanded from personal hygiene to helping people get their degree, but instead they offered laundry services. Why does it matter?
I assume you want to be very intentional in choosing something that stays within your current mission and vision and passion.
Yep. Stays in with our current mission and vision, because what happens is, you nailed it, Jerry, we get scope creep. Nonprofits get scope creep by chasing grants that become whatever the grant needs them to be. And when you do that, you often become, it appears as though you're trying to be everything to everyone, and it gets harder and harder to maintain that. So when you think about growth, you want to think about what is something that's connected, that's going to be help us find similar donors, It's going to be within our mission and vision, or do we want to revisit our mission and vision? We have to challenge ourselves and say, oh, this sounds like a great grant, but is this mission creep? Are we going into territory that either A, we don't have the staffing for, B, we don't have the experience, or C, will confuse what we want to be known for in the community? So first big question is, do we want to grow either footprint by services? Another option is who we serve. So we had a conversation with a homeless shelter a couple weeks ago, and they're wrestling with, which is why they wanted their strategic plan, is today they offer homeless services to only men. They're thinking about serving women and children. This is going to dramatically change how that organization's set up. So it's a lot to take on. They have to think about everything from policy to procedure to bathrooms to location to safety, a lot of things to think about. But they're looking at, do we grow? It could be we can grow services for just men, or we see a need in the community for women and children. Does that mean we need to change our mission and vision? And then what does that look like? How do we grow? How does that change our donors? How does that change our story? So it's not a decision you want to make overnight. The next piece is, what is our strategy? So strategy is answers why a donor would choose you. So why do I want to choose the community foundation to give my money to when I can just choose the local nonprofit? I can just give my money directly there. Why should I choose this organization over another organization that seems like they're serving the same, YMCA versus Boys and Girls Club? Why do I want to choose them? What are you doing that's unique or different that's needed in the marketplace? So I want to tell you about two organizations. One that the strategy was super clear, and then it became muddied, and now they're hurting. So United Way at one time was the dominant nonprofit, and their strategy was really twofold. The first one was, we're the only one that can do employer fundraising. So they had the system behind them. Most nonprofits couldn't do it. They could work directly with an employer, especially big employers. And, $1 or $2 a week, it adds up when you have thousands of employees. Their positioning was well because they were the only ones that can do that. So they could partner directly with the employer. Most nonprofits could not. And at the time when they started, no nonprofits could. The other part of their strategy is we will act as a collective, a backbone organization, and we'll do collective impact work. So as a backbone organization, we're going to bring groups together, and we can maximize your dollar by having a pulse on the community. Well, two things happened that's really led to a lot of consolidations, a lot of United Ways closing because their strategy no longer became clear. One is that employers got away from directing employees to give to the United Way for a variety of different reasons, but they started to open it up and say, we're not going to just say go to United Way. We're going to allow them to get the numbers of other nonprofits and give to them. The second part of that is what Lucinda said earlier about the story. Like, what's the story that we're trying to tell? Do they know what we do? Do they know why we do it? United Ways got very, very muddy. It was very, very unclear on why would I give to United Way and not give to the local nonprofit? Why should I choose United Way? They weren't clear that they could maximize dollars, that they were getting matching dollars in Indiana specifically. They have Lilly, but globally, across the country, nonprofits are struggling and they're collapsing or closing, consolidating or closing because the strategy is no longer clear on how do we grow? How do we differentiate ourselves from all the other opportunities out there? And then I want to share one that's really clear and has been very successful. It's actually one of my favorite nonprofits. It's Thistle Farms. They're located in Nashville, Tennessee. Thistle Farms, their differentiator is a nonprofit social enterprise. Social enterprise being the key piece to how do they grow, what is and what makes them unique and different in the landscape for which they compete. So they predominantly help women that are survivors of prostitution, trafficking, or addiction. They have housing, but they also sell a product. Thistle Farm sells lotions, candles. I've ordered from them for years. It used to be a gift that I would give to clients. Big supporter of Thistle Farms. So they have they're a business entity within this organization. So they, one, are diversified in their revenue. They don't have to rely so much on donors. But two, they show the donors the direct journey from bringing them in, helping these women get back up on their feet, and then they actually work at Thistle Farms. They actually get direct experience. So their strategy is clear, and they can go to the market different than other, say, women homeless shelters or organizations dedicated to helping women that are in human trafficking or prostitution or addiction. They have a much clearer strategy. So I'm going to pause there before we get into the strategic plan and ask, what questions do you have about growth, choosing growth, and choosing your strategy? Questions, thoughts, concerns?
So I'm in a unique spot with the organization I'm at now, and they have been managing for several years the entire state, the invasives programs for the entire state, terrestrial, not water or anyway. They are looking at the end of 2027, like their funding's going to change. They've gotten these grants from NRCS and a ton of other organizations, the Nature Conservancy, blah blah blah. Anyway, those things are coming to an end, and part of that it was the plan, and part of that is the administration right now, right? Because it's not necessarily supportive of the things that we're doing. I have a divided set of people. I have part of my board and staff that wants to be, for us to turn into like an umbrella organization that oversees a lot of things, but would downsize what we actually physically do. Part of our program builds SISMAs in each county, which is a smaller, like, nonprofit organization that does invasive removal just in their area. And that's been the whole plan all along, is that we build those things in each county so that they have that resource and can do it on their own going forward. But I have this other set of board members and stuff that want it to grow into something different. So that's my dilemma with the strategic planning, is finding a way to navigate the two groups to find that solution.
So a board divided is pretty common, Dana. So you are not alone, especially when you're at a point of crossroads, right? So big when you know you cannot continue for the way that you were. You're at a crossroads. We can either go left or we can go right, but the way forward is not the way that we've been coming. And
Correct.
So you want to, so in that, you want to begin to unpack these conversations before you get into strategic planning. Start with, let's walk that idea out 4 steps, right? You want to start with, and I hate to break it down even similar, the simplest way is you're looking at your pros and cons, right? But think more deeply. So let's say if we did this, let's have conversation about that. Let's keep walking it out and walking it out. And that requires an openness of the board to hear each other's sides, but 2, that we keep asking, that we don't stop at the surface level answers, because we're not going to uncover really the direction that we should go until we keep asking deeper and deeper questions. And I have some pretty good ones that I'm going to share with you as we get toward the end. But you don't, in my opinion, it's very difficult to start down the strategic planning path until you have a united front on kind of what does growth look like to us, or coming to alignment on this is our way forward.
Okay.
Too many times they want to start the strategic planning process, but if you don't know which left or right, if you're taking, which road you're taking, it impacts literally everything that falls up underneath that. The staffing that we're going to need, the programs that we're going to execute, the partnerships that we need. So what happens is the groups just circled. They get like in a washing machine, or what I often call is the roundabout. It's time to exit the roundabout. Language that I personally use to help people exit the roundabout is this phrase here. Are we making a decision on that? It sounds to me like we're making a decision on that. Should we document this decision? Are we gaining agreement on this decision? That phrase may sound like, oh, that's not kind of a big deal. But when you start to use it, you are reinforcing that we are making a decision, that we are exiting the roundabout. So if yours is, are we going to be more of a facilitator and less of a doer, more of a strategic partner and less of somebody that's going to do action, as they make small steps toward leading to that major decision, each one of those are key decisions they have to make all the way to get there. That's what you want to start asking. Are we making a decision here, or is this still up? Because if you don't say, is that a decision? The roundabout, the circle keeps going and going and going, and you'll go 5 meetings and no decision's been made. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So hard conversations, and I can give you a bunch of, we have a thing called powerful questions. If you shoot me an email, I'll send you a document that's powerful questions, and it'll help you. It's got about 6 or 7 questions per section that just help you ask in a different way to get them to move forward.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
You're welcome. You're in it's a tough spot where you're at. All right. Any other thoughts on growth versus strategy before we move on?
Mine is kind of opposite. So you talked about how, as a nonprofit, we kind of go after all these things to try to fill all these voids, and then we become everything. So we're really wanting to get back to a core value, and just, what does our original mission and vision look like, and are we staying true to that, or like how do we need to adapt that?
So one question you can ask or you could do two things to do. First, ask all of your take to the next board meeting a index card, hand it out to all the board members, and say, what do you think is our core primary thing that we should be focused on? Gather that up and start to see if you see a theme. They might use different words, but if there's 10 of them, do they have 10 ideas of what the community foundation's doing should be doing in the community? Is it really 4? Is it 3? That begins if you got your themes. Let's say you have 5 when it's done, right? You got 5, and you're still questioning whether or not these are what we should be doing. You want to bounce up against 1. Let's talk about these things. Do we have a shared understanding of what it means? So you want to start to narrow down from there. But the other thing is you want to bounce your document up against or your programs and what you're actually doing up against those things. So if they don't fall in any of the bucket, then you want to question it, right? So if you had those 4 or 5 things and you run a program, you vet it against that, and there's misalignment, they're incongruent, you're operating this program that really had nothing to do with the 4 things that the board members think you should be doing, that's the first one to go, we should probably question this, right? So start with, are they even aligned? Gain some alignment, what we should be doing, then start to bounce your programs up against each other. That'll start moving you in the right direction to, are we in scope creep, or maybe I just think we're in scope creep and we're not. Like, it'll start to get you to think about what direction should we be going. Makes sense? Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right. Last is your strategic plan. So all next session is all of the components and pieces of a strategic plan. So it ultimately should answer, what do we do and how? How do we do it? The level of depth depends on each organization. I have some that we will get all the way down to the actual metrics, and they want that in there, and some need a little more flexibility. I'll share what I think are some of the best practices in the next session. But we'll get into what is the strategic plan. You want to answer first, growth. Do we need to grow? If so, how? And then strategy. Why would a donor choose me or choose us over some of the other opportunities they have? Are we clear in our messaging? We'll tackle that. So the next piece of it is I want to give you this framework. It's in your document. So when you start this is excellent, Dana, where all of you, where you're at in this process, first thing you want to ask is, are we asking, what questions should we be asking during this process? What questions? Great to start that, a whole laundry list. What are the questions we should be asking? Clarity on who do we serve and what do they need? This is where you'll help you identify, are we in scope creep? Dana, this is, who do we serve? Is it, if I'm going to be a partnership and more of a facilitator, if you will, who we serve might look different than if we're actually going to deliver it. So help you think about that. Why do we exist? And what business are we really in? Don't take business as a business word or phrase. It's what is the impact you're trying to make? What are we actually trying to do here? This goes back to Olivia, what you said on are we in scope creep? Are we not? So why do we exist? What do we need to plan for? We're going to talk about that in the next section. Next session. What are the research that we need to do? So what's our ways to win? How do we grow? You're thinking about that. And I'm going to tell you about some of the research you should do in the next one. What's our strategy? We covered. How do we drive this work? That's your development of your strategic plan. And then how do we prepare to pivot or adapt if needed? So this is the overall framework that we use for every client to check ourselves, to help our clients. Are we getting there? Now I want to go over the last remaining pieces. Okay. We covered as a group or as your board or whoever's going to be working within, we covered, do we want to grow? If so, what does that look like? Footprint, services, do we want a partnership? You've got some examples in your guide. Do we need to clearly define our strategy? So how am I different than if I have similar services to the Boys and Girls Club? Am I clear on how we're different? If I have similar services to some organizations that might be competing for a grant that you have, am I clear in the why are we different? Do we need a strategic plan that makes it clear of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it? And then do we need all three of this in the process? So you're looking first to gain some clarity because that's going to tell you what future conversations you're going to have. The second thing, the next set of questions you're going to ask is, how do we intend to use this plan? So you gave me some answers at the very beginning of it. I want to expand your thinking or give you some additional things to think about. So will it help us make decisions in the future? This to me is the most important thing a strategic plan should do. It should tell you what you will do and will not do in the future. So if you have 4 pillars or 5 pillars, that's a good way to go. If it doesn't fit in any of these pillars, we're not doing it. You should be able to ask your board members, based on this plan, do we know what we're not going to do? That's helping you make decisions for the future. If the answer is unclear, we got to keep refining that strategic plan. Are we telling our story to internal and external stakeholders? Just internal? Will this ever go anywhere? Or just the board and the staff? Or is it meant to go out to the community or to a grant maker, out on a website? Because it matters on what that final product looks like. Is it clear? Is the terminology, are you using a lot of inside baseball terms? So a common community member doesn't understand what you're saying because we didn't think about them as a stakeholder, as somebody that's going to read it. What will be used to guide our work internally? So will it be used? So are we actually going to work this plan? Or are we going to have a different document that we take the plan and it goes onto a website and we share it, but we actually have a different document. So does it need to be interactive? Does it not? Does it need to have details, or is it just for high level context? It depends where a board is at or an organization's at. What data is critical for us to collect to help us make decisions? This will help when we get to stakeholder engagement in the research process. All right. This, okay, so this is a challenge for 100% of every client I've ever worked with. And that's the time and the resources. And this is anyone that we've engaged in a plan with. It often feels like for a client, that we can have meaningful dialogue in a half a day session, or that we can get it done in a day session. And it's really hard, especially if a lot of the previous work we talked about, are we going to grow? If so, how? What's our strategy? Is it clear? If those two things are not answered, are we in vision mission creep? Are we keeping our vision mission statement? The more things that are not decided at the point in which you begin the strategic planning process, especially if it's a consultant, the more time and money it's going to cost. So you want to be mindful of, are we ready to commit the time and the resources to do this with a diverse group of people that have different lived experiences that can weigh in and look at the plan differently? Have I set the right expectation? It's not, in my opinion, realistic to think I can get a strategic plan and done in 3 weeks if we haven't made a lot of really important decisions. So be mindful of what's realistic for us to have hard conversations and to do this over a period of time. You also want to look at what's the role board members have and be really clear, super clear on what is the role. Do we expect them to be part of writing it? Do we expect them to just be in the room when we develop the plan, if you're going to do like a session with them? Do we expect them to be helping us with the research? What is their role? And be clear with them, because there's often a disconnect between what the team expects the board to do and what the board thinks they're supposed to do. If you want them to be engaged in the process, be super clear that you want them to be engaged. All of them, some of them, I have some clients that only 2 or 3 of the board members are tasked with being on this task force, and the rest of the board members don't participate at all. They review the plan or review the notes, and they're entrusting the other 3 people. Others, the board's involved the entire time. So be clear about the time and the resources. Last but not least, is, are we ready to talk? And I mean really talk. So this comes back to, maybe, Dana, what you might be experiencing are really hard conversations, especially if you have to sunset something or go in a radically different direction. You have to rebrand. You've had board members on there for 20 years. They love what they've always been a part of. Are we ready to have hard conversations? What are our doubts or reservations
and it's
about
yes
this?
to all those things.
I would not be surprised. I'm not surprised at all. And you are not alone. You are not alone in this. What are the biggest decisions we need to make as part of the process? I had a client just recently, actually, that went into the process saying, the challenge we have right now, the biggest challenge we have is to diversify our revenue. So the question was really back to growth. And it was, are we going to grow into different states, or are we going to serve a different group of people than what they've served? So they're an association. Are we going to change who we serve, or are we going to change the states that we work in? Because they're declining in revenue. They have to turn the ship around. We kept going back to that. Do we have clarity on this? Do we have clarity? Do I know? And because they told us this was the biggest decision they had to make. We got almost to the end, and we bounced that fresh set of eyes. Look at the strategic plan. Do you know that you are not going to expand into another state, or you're not going to take on these other groups of people? You're going to grow revenue this way. It took multiple questions for them to finally get to, yes, it's now clear. because that means you're putting a stake in the ground. You're literally saying, I'm not going to go to another state, or I'm not going to offer this program, or I'm not going to take this grant. You're saying no to something. That's very hard for us as human beings. So you want to define what are the biggest decisions we have to make as part of the process and make sure that you keep coming back to that. Also, you want to honor any recent decisions that are made, and you don't want to revisit back in the process. You want to clearly articulate that. That's going to lead you to having a good plan. All of these questions, getting them answered. The last part is I want to set you up for thinking about is the impact that these different decisions have, and you want to look at it holistically. So this is our transformation model that we use when we're thinking about all of these, working with the client. All of these things are connected. So you want to think whatever decision we make, is it part of our values or our commitment, our vision, our mission, whatever we promised? So this is where you get into mission creep. Whatever we're agreeing to, what will that impact on our org structure, the way we work today, the people we have, the leadership? Are we changing something that's going to impact them? How we operate today. So I had a client that bought this has been several years ago, that part of their plan was to go buy a building. That was like their growth. But they didn't think about all the day-to-day operations. When you have a building, are you going to have a maintenance man? Who's going to maintain the roof? What about a building maintenance plan? Do you want to have a plan? How are you going to look at that every year? How does this change your fundraising? The plan that in their mind, it was, we need to grow and to get this building. But at the end of the day, you want to, for them, they had to think beyond that. How does this change our operations by having this building we're now responsible for? How's it affect our insurance? So this is that, Dana, when I was saying go out 4 questions, this is a great example of that. Norms, values, behaviors. Are we in alignment to what do we actually have the behaviors needed to execute the plan? These are, again, hard questions. And then strategy, which we've talked about. It's, is that in alignment with everything else we do? So again, this is a congruence model is what we call it. All these things are either in alignment or they're not in alignment, and we need to get them in alignment. All right. So I want to pause there and let you know that it's at the end, almost at the end of our time. Before we break, and I see you next week, what are the questions you have about what we've covered today? Questions you have about what we've covered today to get us set up to go into strategic planning. Questions before we are done.
So I have one. I'm
Yeah.
looking back at some of the notes I put about things to do before you start a strategic plan. So thinking about growth and so if you're an organization that's creating your very first strategic plan, say you're a county, a small coalition that's just getting going with a new direction, is there a different question to ask them because they're not ready to talk about expanding if they're brand new?
I don't think so. I think that they can go on beyond expanding and say, go right on to why would someone choose us? They're not ready to grow. I think that's fine to just say, we are just establishing, we're not ready to grow, but we do want to be intentional about our strategy and our story. So I love that you asked that, because you want to be able to remove things we shouldn't be asking or discussing. This would be one that I would say, nope, you're good. You got to focus on, why am I going
Strategy.
to choose you, not choose another organization that offers maybe similar services?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions about this first session? Okay. You have 2 things in the chat. If you've not downloaded them, ask you to grab them. That would be your workbook, and you'll get another one next week that'll continue to add to the PDF that you have. So download that, print that, take your notes there. And then also, Gavin dropped the powerful questions. We use this document. I've shared this I bet I've had that document 10 or 15 years. Long time. It's a great one to walk in and be able to ask questions. So I encourage you to download that if you've not had it in the chat. Take it with you to the next meeting. It'll help you really, it'll stimulate the conversation by framing questions differently. So those two things are in there. Otherwise, I will see you next Thursday. I will send out this recording if you want to share it with anyone else that may be coming next week. You're welcome to do that. So we'll be sharing that recording. All right. Any other questions before we go?
Will next Thursday also just be 12 to 1?
Yes. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I gave myself a buffer in case we had a lot of questions. We might just end at 1. We might go, but I gave myself 90 minutes in case, because I wanted it to be interactive, Jerry. If I got 20 people, I didn't want to not do them justice. So because our group was small, it worked out that we're done by 1, but I won't, it's highly likely, but just in case.
I have a 1:30 dentist appointment. This means I can definitely get there on time. That's all I wanted to know.
Yes,
sure.
you are probably going to be able to get there on time.
Excellent.
You're
Perfect.
welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you.
You're
Thanks so
very
much.
welcome. I will see you all next week. I can't wait to hear what
good.
you if you ask any of these good questions. So have a great week. Thank
You too.
you.